Now, toward the end of the previous exercise, I made an interesting comment that's not entirely accurate. What I said was that you can change this type because it's live editable type. You can change it to whatever you want, and you could assign a different typeface and a different type size and all kinds of other formatting attributes as well. And that is technically true. However, there's a huge pain factor involved. For example, I'll go ahead and grab my type tool. And first of all, you have to locate your text. You have to locate the characters you want to change. And the best way to locate them is to press Control-Y or Command-Y in a Mac. And then you know, all right, if this guy's name isn't really Herpaderp, it's Heapadeep or something like that, then you could just go ahead and select those characters and you could enter different characters. And so I'll just go ahead and start typing. And okay, it's taking a moment to keep up with me, but I'll go ahead and enter the rest of the text. And it ignored everything after the P that I just got through entering. I entered a bunch of other characters as well. Even though I'm here in the outline mode where I can't see the effects, Illustrator still insists upon updating them in the background, which is idiotic, in my opinion. It shouldn't bother to update these effects until we can see them, because it's not doing anybody any good. So anyway, what that means is that we can't edit the text with any degree of alacrity here. It's going to continue to seize up on us. So I'm going to go ahead and press Escape in order to escape out of the text entry mode. And I'm going to press Control-Y or Command-Y so I can see my effect anyway. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn off some of the effects in the appearance panel. Most notably, 3D Rotate. That really slows things down. Might as well turn off Transform. And might as well turn off Drop Shadow, also a fairly slow one. Pucker and Bloat and Offset Path, they're not going to harm things too much. And the transforms that are applied to the stroke are fine. The only reason I turned off this transform, because transforms are a very quick effect. The reason I turned this one off is otherwise it's misleading because it moves the text to the right and it also increases the vertical scale. Anyway, so I'll turn that off. And now I should be able to select this text pretty easily because it should be where I'm seeing it. So Heapadeep is what I want, let's say, and I'll go ahead and make that change and it happens very quickly. All right, but that's not really the change I want to make, so I'll just go ahead and change it back to what it was before, like so, and then press the Escape key in order to escape the text entry mode, and then go ahead and reassign these effects one at a time. You can't drag up and down these eyeballs, by the way you can inside the Layers panel. All right, so anyway, I end up getting this effect here, and it looks good. Now, the next thing I want to do is affect this text down here underneath. And one of the reasons is, of course, because it's yellow against a yellow background, so I can't see what's going on. What I'm going to do is add another bevel effect by adding a stroke. And that may sound like the same old darn thing we've already seen, but as usual, there's going to be a different spin on it. So I've selected the text. Notice here inside the appearance panel, I don't have a fill or a stroke. What's going on? Well, notice that type contains characters. All type objects have this little characters entry here in the appearance panel. And if you double click on that characters item, then you'll see the fill that's applied to the characters. That goes ahead and selects the characters here inside the illustration window. And it shows you this is a fill that's applied to them and this is a stroke. However, were I to assign a different stroke, like let's go ahead and choose this dark brown right here from the list, and then I'll change the line weight value to 5 points, let's say. And of course I want to move the stroke below the fill, and so I do, and it doesn't work. And I try it again, and it doesn't work. And I move the fill above the stroke, and it doesn't work. And that's because when you're working with text, things are more limited, and Illustrator refuses to let you do this, is the problem. All right, so let's get rid of the stroke. We don't want it here. What we need to do is go back to Type, which says Type No Appearance. We'll go back to the larger text object, double-click on that type item, and you switch back to having the text selected as if with the black arrow tool. Now I'll go ahead and add a new stroke by clicking on this Add New Stroke icon in the bottom left corner of the Appearance panel, or I can press that keyboard shortcut, Control-Alt/, or Command-Option/ on the Mac, in order to add that stroke, and then I'll change the line weight value to 5 points, let's say, and I'll click on the swatch, and I'll change it to dark brown, and I have the exact same problem I had before. The stroke is in front, and this time the fill's empty. So if I move the stroke below the fill, right there to this location, actually, because the fill's twirled open, it didn't make any difference because there is no fill to move it down below. Well, here's what you do. You grab the stroke and you move it below the characters. So that way the characters, which are filled with yellow, will be on top, and you end up getting this effect. And that's exactly what we want. All right, now click on stroke to make it active. And then go up to the effect menu because we want to bevel it. Choose Distort and Transform. Choose Transform. If you loaded D keys, then you can press Control-E or Command-E on the Mac. And then we'll change these values very slightly. That is negative 1.5 for horizontal. And then I'll change the vertical value to 0.5. And I'll turn on preview so that I can gauge the accuracy of my results, and it looks good. Then I'll click OK. Now I need to rotate this text in 3D space, so I'll go up to the Effect menu, choose 3D, and choose Rotate. I'm making quick work of this stuff because we've already seen it before. Here are the modifications I want you to make. So you don't need to turn on the preview checkbox if you don't want to at this point. These are the settings. We're looking for 0 for the pitch value there, and then negative 15 degrees for the yaw value, and then 7 for the roll. So 0 for X, negative 15 for Y, 7 for Z, and the perspective value should be 100 degrees. And then I'll turn on the preview checkbox in order to make sure I've got a good effect. And wouldn't you know, I wasn't paying enough attention, and I went ahead and applied my 3D rotation to the stroke independently of the fill. So this is an absolute mess, but that's okay. Click OK in order to accept it. Don't click cancel. Watch what you do here. You can just grab this effect now, and you can move it to a different location. You can drag it and drop it onto the type, for example, and then it's applied to the entire type object. Now, when we were working with the previous type object, we had 3D rotate at the end of the list rather than at the beginning, and that might be a good idea. You might want to experiment with that. So I'll go ahead and grab 3D rotate and drag it to the end of the list, and that ends up rendering the descenders at the bottom of my text much better. So I like that effect. All right, just a couple more things to do. Make sure the type object is selected so we don't make that mistake again. Go to Distort and Transform, choose the Transform command. This time I want you to enter a horizontal move value of 66 points and a vertical value of 12 points, and then turn on the preview checkbox to make sure that works. It does. Click OK. And then finally, I'm going to apply the drop shadow by going up to the Effect menu, choosing Stylize, and choosing Drop Shadow. And Illustrator goes ahead and brings up the last values we applied, which are just fine with one exception. I'm going to take the opacity value up to 100%. Otherwise, everything's fine. X offset -3, Y offset 1, blur 3 points. Click OK in order to accept that modification. And there it is. That's the effect I want to apply to this text. But there's a larger problem going on. What's with this distance between the F and the I in difficulty? Well, that's ultimately some letters in need of a ligature, which is an open type issue, which I'll explain in the very next exercise.